Comfortable standing, I'm going to ask you to stand. Mrs. Dubrow, you can stick your name seated if it's better for you.
So this is a process. This is actually to acknowledge the I think some separation. You were in the left-hand side, you were in the right side, and this gives you the just bring the distance up. I'm not when this thing you just got in the first too, and then
Might be, sometimes, it depends on which manufacturer you go.
And normally this is not as good.
Yes.
So please, if you want to report, it's spacious. When we say a prayer, you want to join with me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam dayan ha'emet. Blessed are you, Lord Rabbi, sovereign of the universe, who is the righteous judge. I say, Adonai Natan, Adonai Kach, Yehi Shem, Adonai Who gives the Holy Spirit. Blessed be the name of the Lord.
See the services. Relatives and friends, as we begin our services, we ask that you please turn off all cell phones or electronic devices or place them in a silent mode.
Ma'ayan Hechayim, wellspring of life, come together today to remember, share our sorrow, and commemorate Louis's life. We recall the blessing of his life. We thank God for all that was good and true in his life, and for the precious memories which shall endure. Eternal God, his family and friends are bowed in grief. They seek light to dispel the dark gloom which threatens to overwhelm them. Be gracious to those who mourn, for they are in distress. Bless them with your compassion. Ease their burden of sorrow. Send them light and peace, as it is written, fear not, as I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will sustain you with my power. And let us all say, Amen.
Amen.
You saw a few moments ago, we stood here in the front row, had a private moment of prayer and consolation as we cut the ribbons, the signs of consolation of the morning. You'll notice that his three children, Carol, Robert, and Howard, are wearing the ribbons on their left-hand sides by design. It may not be good biology, it was good emotion. At one time, we thought that's where the heart was located. And in the death of a parent, surviving children would wear that to support the pain in their hearts. Norma, his wife of 58 years, is wearing her ribbon on the right. Richard, his brother, is wearing his on the right side as well. But you'll notice afterwards that all the ribbons are only cut part way. And that's for a reason. That's by design. This is an act of separation. This is an act of sadness today. But at the top, perhaps even still closer to the heart of each one of the ribbons, there's still whole cloth. And the act of separation is one that is torn and split, but still the memories of love and connectedness are still there and always moving. I'm Rabbi Gary Gans. Sad that this is the way we've met each other today, but honored to be part of your extended family, to help you as you transition to acknowledge and commemorate him, but also move on to the next stage of grief and your lives. I also want to acknowledge that there are 6 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. And for those who are young, they'll need all of you to be a cohesive mishpacha, family, to speak about him, to share your memories, the intensity of your love, and all that matters, so that they can carry it to the future generations. Let's see, the grandchildren are Stephen, who I met, and you'll be hearing from in a bit, Joshua, Cheryl, Jenna, Cameron, and Daniel, and 3 great children, Louis and Sophia and Ella. And these are just the nucleus of your family and who you are. I also want to acknowledge a special friend, Stephen Stein. Who is Stephen? Are you here? He's not present. Well, acknowledge his emotional presence in any event for you all.
I'm sure he's listening.
Okay. So Louis, multi-talented fellow, before dementia and his deterioration, he loved to read, he played the piano, he was funny, and I see a number of heads are shaking, especially for the funny parts. And you each can identify different memories, either directly or vicariously, to what we remember from him and from his life. I'm honored to read on his behalf the classic prayer said at funerals, Psalm 23. I'll recite the portion in Hebrew and an English interpretation. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, v'nodesha yarbitzeni, almeni v'nuchos yenachaleni. Nafshi yeshovev, yancheni magle tzedek, l'ma'an shemo. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. God has me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside the still waters. God guides me on paths of righteousness and revives my soul for the sake of God's glory. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod do comfort me. You set a table in sight of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall abide in the house of the Lord forever. I was overhearing some of your conversations before we began the sermon. Not so much the individual words, but the volume and the intensity that you brought to it. There was a range of feelings. There was sadness at his death, and there was also a joy of being together. I understand that because of this virus, this is the first time that you all have had a chance to be together at all through this crazy quarantine. How depressing, how sad that this is what has brought us together. But still, maintaining social distancing is what we need to do to provide for each other's health and security. This range of emotions of joy, sadness, is so expressed in a prayer from the book of Ecclesiastes that I share with you at this time in translation. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born, and a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones, a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence, and a time to speak. Indeed, is a time to share. I welcome to this pulpit now Carol Roberts Howard to represent his children.
Thank you all for coming. I know we really would have been happy to see everybody here. Most people knew my dad as Lou, but I knew him for the awesome man that he was. He was kind-hearted, fun-loving man. Unless you dropped his fishing pole in the water, then he was really serious. Growing up, I recall my dad sometimes working as much as 3 jobs. To keep food on the table and a roof over his head. He taught all of us to value working hard, to be a bit better, and achieve more than we have. He directed my life by telling me to stay the course with perfection, getting educated and never give up. I shared his passion with my children. And after they had achieved their goals, I'm still pushing myself to be better every day. When he had free time, he always wanted to go fishing. When I was very young, I remember him coming home from a fishing trip with his friend Bobby Swinson, dripping wet, sorry. I can't see. Dripping wet, apparently he went out of an RC pier in Brooklyn in a small sunfish type boat and failed to check the weather report and got hit by a storm. The boat split in 2 and he and Bobby survived by hanging on to pieces of the boat and swimming a mile or more to shore. Although fishing was his passion, above all, he demonstrated countless times the love for his family. My dad was amazing. He was kind-hearted, made friends wherever he went, and his sense of humor lit the room anytime he came in. He directed my life in ways that helped me be a man, a husband, father, and now grandfather. Sorry. I am today alone with my wife Darlene, my children Joshua and Cheryl, their spouses Samantha, Ryan, and Ryan, my granddaughter Ellen, soon to have another one on the way. We'll dearly miss him. The last time I was with him, he expressed how proud. The last time I was with him, he expressed how proud he was of me. Although I didn't express it openly at the time, it meant a lot. I always wanted to make him proud. And no, I did lots of things that should tradition. But him saying those words spoke volumes. The last time we spoke on the phone, only a few days ago, he said, "So when am I going to see you guys?" I said, "Soon, Dad, soon." I guess I'll have to wait a little longer now. But no, Shirley, we will meet again. Keep us faithfully in heaven and we'll warm up the fishing. I love you, Pop.
Thank you.
I held it together.
All right. Let's see if I can keep it together.
Hey,
Wish me luck. I wrote a few words for you. Pop. That's what I call him. Today we're here to celebrate here and online for this wacky COVID thing. So, we normally have like a full place in here, but I know there's many people that are online. Papa Lou. Pop, Louis, Dad. If you knew my father, you would know his love of life. Music, laughing, and fishing, especially. I have so many memories of him being woken up before dawn to get on a boat or to get the crab traps down at the Jersey Shore. I'm sorry, I'm old. That's not the one. Okay, all right, continue. That's what he loved to do, and that is why me and the many of his kids and grandkids love fishing or simply being out on the water as much as we do. If you knew my dad, you would know that he's a joker and loved to laugh. I always loved to make him laugh, which is why I'm the bad comedian that I am today. He laughed at my jokes, as lewd or raunchy as they were. And if I sing there, I guess you know. I miss him asking me when we go fishing. Which happened every time I called. When are we going fishing? No matter what the weather was outside, whether it was 90 degrees or in the middle of winter, he was right. In recent years, he had his share of medical issues, some of which we didn't know if he was coming back. My father left us on Sunday evening. No suffering, no hospital stay, no pain. I guess we could all ask for that one. Okay. I'm grateful for having him as my father. I'm grateful for my mother that kept him going and the many great friends and family that he has. It won't be the same without you. But your legacy will continue on. Thank you to all that are here celebrating my father's life. There's nothing like a funeral that gets friends and family together. I was told not to put that in there, but I did anyway. For that, we are blessed. We love you, Pop. Just wanted to share a quick thing. I'm sure Barry and Marlene are online now, but they were very good friends of my mom and dad, and because of the COVID thing, they weren't able to make it. Barry wrote a really big thing to me, but it's the last sentence that stuck. I just have to find it.
The day before my father passed, I was talking to my mother, and she said, like she sometimes does, "Your father wants to talk to you." So he gets on the phone. He must have went into another room so my mother couldn't hear, and he said, "Carol, can you buy flowers for me to give your mother? I'll pay you back." I agreed, and I said, "I got you, Dad." So I stayed with my mother the other night, and we had such a nice conversation about my father and how they met, and she said, "By the way, I heard what your father said that day. Don't send me flowers." He was trying so hard to be secretive. I was thinking about this, my last conversation I had with my dad, and I made a decision. Mom, I'm going to listen to you this time, but I also have to listen to Dad too. So starting next year, when you receive those purple flowers every year for Valentine's Day, there may not be a card with them, but you'll know who they're from. Dad, I got you. I miss you.
Marlene wrote a handful, but the last sentence kind of hit a note with me, and she had a long thing here, but it was, "After all, family are the friends you choose with your heart." So, you know, I mean, yes, we have blood with many of you guys, but you know, that's the stuff that sticks. You know, the stuff, you know, you actually choose to have somebody in your life. And Barry and Marlene were great people. They were good friends, and they were family. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm very touched by the closeness the three of them expressed. I also want to point out the weird way I look at things right now. You're wearing an N95 mask, but from my angle, the word N95 was upside down, and with my vision, it looked like the word son on your mask. And maybe because we're looking at family relationships right now, but that looks like exactly what you chose to wear is the son mask, as you all stood and supported each other. I now call on Richard to come up, representing not just the recent years, but all the years of your childhood.
I was looking for words to describe Lou. So for those of you who didn't know him that well, you might get a sense of who he was. But I came up with words like standing words, like loyalty, sincerity, and truly I was thinking of him when these words came to me. Honesty and loyalty. I could go on. But I think the best way to get a sense of who he really was is a short story I'll tell you. When we were kids, from time to time I would get into trouble. And one time Lou had this best friend who at the time was very, very big, very strong. He was bully type, big guy. I was about 4 years younger than Lou. And he and I got into a fight in the baseball field. And I didn't have the good sense to not fight. So while I was on the ground being pounded, I saw this figure coming from about a block away, running toward us. And when I finally saw it was Lou, it was like went into slow motion. And Lou jumped on this guy, and I was in the clear at that time, and they must have fought for another hour. When he saw it was me in trouble, he didn't hesitate. It was his little brother that was getting beaten up, and that's all that mattered. And also at that point, he didn't care if it was his best friend or not. That was totally immaterial. And I think that little story kind of characterizes, gives you a picture of who my brother was. Not that long after, well, 10 years or so, I did the bravest thing I've ever done in my life, and that was teaching my brother how to drive. It was comical. It was also very dangerous. And he just didn't get it. And finally, we were going down a relatively busy street. And I took the wheel from him and I put him on the Bell Parkway, which for those of you who don't know is a very busy thoroughfare. And he started screaming in the car, "What are you doing? Are you nuts?" Which I was a little bit anyhow. So I said, "You're either going to drive or you're going to kill us both." Fortunately, he drove. And from that point on, he seemed to get the hang of it. I love my brother, and I miss him, even now. Howie, Robbie, and Carol, you were blessed to have a father like him and a mother like your mom, Norma. They did something right, because I love you all, and I just can't believe how you're growing up so right. In any event, I'm certain that Mom will be well taken care of. I have that kind of confidence in you kids. You do it with the right idea of what responsibilities are and how to live your life with respect. She's a fantastic woman. Throughout my life, I've shared a lot with your mom, and we can all do well to emulate her values. He'll be missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And representing the grandchildren, Mark, Paul, and Steve.
I feel like I'm still in a state of shock, and I'm sure everyone is. There's a lot of good reasons for that. It feels so unfair to lose someone like this when we haven't been able to see them much, if at all. Especially when the whole reason we've stayed away is to avoid losing them forever, and that's exactly what happened anyway. And it was so sudden. I was fortunate enough to have FaceTime Grim and Papa last Thursday, me, Mackenzie, and the girls. Lily asked to see Papa. Grandma panned the phone to him, and he smiled back at her. Everything was as it should be. But somehow, just like that, he is gone 3 days later. What I think is most shocking is that this doesn't feel like how we were supposed to lose Papa Lou. He was supposed to be pulled overboard fighting a 500-pound tuna or a shark. But in all seriousness, I think it's still so shocking because in a lot of ways it felt like he was invincible. He beat multiple strokes, heart disease, and it's not just like he fought through them, it's that he brushed them off like they were nothing. He had a mini stroke that scrambled his ability to read, and his reaction isn't confusion, it's not panic, it's, Norm, check this out, they printed the paper funny.
Yes.
He has another stroke, and when he comes to, his first words are to joke around with the doctors and nurses. I remember hanging with him in the hospital, and he's all hooked up to the machines, and he goes, Stephen, would you help me unhook all this crap and get me out of here? I'm fine. And when's our next fishing trip? And I think that's just so telling of who he is, who he was. He was unstoppable, he was unfazed, he was a rock, and I think that's why it's so hard to believe he's gone now. When I was young, I got to spend more time with my grandparents than any kid gets to. I was spoiled. When my parents got divorced, me and Jenna lived with them. Before that, I think we spent at least every Sunday at Grandma and Norma and Papa Lou's house. Even when I was little, as soon as I could use a phone, maybe 3 years old, I would call them up. That's where I wanted to be. That's where all the grandchildren wanted to be. And looking back, I think it's easy to take for granted just how much his warmth and sense of humor created an environment that anchored our whole family and brought everyone together. And even in the face of dementia, the inability to call and rote memory, it's a horrifying thing, and for so many, it creates fear, anger, it can change a whole person's disposition, but that's not what I saw with Papa. He was still the same happy, cool, collected jokester I've always known. It's just who he was to the core. And so Sunday night, still in disbelief after finding out he's gone, before I went to sleep, I was up late reading on my phone about Jewish traditions in death and bereavement, and I came across a concept I hadn't heard of before, Shemirah, the ritual of guarding the body of the deceased until burial. If I understood correctly, our ancestors believed that the separation of the soul and body is not an immediate thing. It's a gradual process, and for some period of time, the soul hovers near the body, and the belief is that the soul is somewhat lost and somewhat confused between death and burial. And so the Shomrim, or guards, are there, among other reasons, to comfort the spirit of the departed. But all I could think was, not my Papa. He wouldn't be lost, he wouldn't be confused. He would be as calm and sure as always, waiting patiently for the next fishing trip. You'll always be loved and missed. Love you, Papa.
Thank you all. Norma and I had a couple of conversations over the past couple of days about what Lou's Hebrew name was. Not just his name, but the name of his parents, which forms the formula of who he was. I have most of it, and I'm honored now to include it in a prayer that's known as El Malei Rachamim, God the Compassionate One. Even in times of sorrow, we turn to God for support. I ask everyone to please stand. If you're capable, comfortable, I will recite this prayer in Hebrew and then in English interpretation. El Malei Rachamim, Shochem V'Amromim, Hamtzei L'Chanachona, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, B'malot Kedoshim Toharim, K'zoha Harakia Ma'askirim, Et Nishmat Lev Wolf Ben Yitzchak, Florence, Shalach L'Olamo, B'Gan Eden Tehei B'Nuchato, Anna, Ba'al HaRachamim, Hastiregu B'Seter Knapecha L'Olamim, Utzror Mitzror Chaim Et Nishmato, Adonai Nachalato, Yanuach B'Shalom, Al Mishkalo V'Nomar, Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure. So Louis Wolf, the son of Yitzchak in Florence, who has gone to his eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds he performed in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. The Lord is his portion. May he rest in tranquility of shalom, of peace. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated. The interment will take place at the Locustwood Cemetery, Route 70, Shirley Hill.
We may have the pallbearers, please. And I'll ask everyone to rise once more, please.
Adonai miyagur bohalecha, v'yishkon ba'ar kodshecha. Holech kamim v'toel tzedek, v'dover emet lavabo. Lo ragal al shono, lo asa re'ehu ra'ah, v'checha lo nasa al krovo. Nivzeh be'inav nimas, et yirei Adonai yichabed.
Somebody's probably gonna want that first.
Yeah, I think it is a speaker.
Yeah, it is.
Is that like you?
Good to see you, Rabbi.
You will.
What's the speaker?
I would.
I don't have to tell you. It is a speaker, so.
Play something at the temple?